Hello and welcome to Creator Weekly for May 4th, 2025. I'm Peggy Kay, and today there are updates for YouTube, Vimeo, Pinterest, and I'm going to talk a bit about changes because of the latest Apple court case ruling and tariffs. I know that sounds boring, but it's important, and more if there's time. Thank you so much for joining me today. I want to say, May the 4th be with you. I know, it's silly. I found this image back years ago. You could make these cool augmented reality videos on your Pixel phone. I thought, oh, maybe I'll do it again. But I looked it up. It hasn't been a feature since the Pixel 4. So not anymore. I guess it's all AI stuff now instead of augmented reality stuff. So let's get started with a few YouTube updates. YouTube shared a recap of recent changes to the YouTube on TV app. This is also for game consoles. This is not to be confused with YouTube TV, which is a different subscription. This is YouTube on TV. And they've made a bunch of improvements. And excuse me just a moment. All right. So these are improvements for viewers. And one thing they've done is made it more organized to browse. There is a new shelf that shows from your top channels. So these are the channels that you watch the most often. There's also a separate shorts shelf instead of having the shorts kind of mixed in with everything else. Apparently, a lot of people watch shorts on televisions. So this is a nice update. There is a podcasts tab. If you watch podcasts on YouTube, you can access your podcasts right there in the app. There's, I think, music-related tabs as well. And one of the updates I think is kind of neat is that you can now loop individual videos. Before you could just loop whole playlists. So if there's a video that's long, there's a lot of ambient kind of videos, fireplace, ocean, whatever, and you can just make that loop on forever. So there are a few other YouTube updates I want to mention. In the YouTube mobile app, you can now see the status of uploads on your channel. You go to the videos tab and it will show if you have videos in the process of uploading or if the upload failed, something like that. If you have videos that are in draft mode and you haven't published them yet, you can see that all in the main YouTube app now, which is great if you're mostly using YouTube on mobile to publish your videos. In YouTube Studio on desktop, you can now filter your playlists list by description and visibility. Visibility is public versus private versus unlisted. Before, you could only filter by the name of the playlist. So this may make it easier to find specific playlists that you created if you don't remember the exact name, which, you know, sometimes I have those memory problems. And then one of my favorite updates this week is an update to the YouTube Shorts editor. They're letting you add stylized, editable captions. So you can add the captions text and change the style, font, color, and edit them. And this makes Shorts a lot more visually engaging, I think. And of course, it improves accessibility. So people who are watching shorts with the sound off or can't hear for some other reason can see your information. On my shorts, I mostly just add regular YouTube captions instead of burned in captions, but I might try this in the future. And then the last update for YouTube is an experiment they're running, which is kind of interesting. For people who are in this test, if you do a search on YouTube and there's a high probability that the videos in the search results will have sexual themes, they are blurring the thumbnails so that you're not taken by surprise by a sexy thumbnail. So this is not videos that violate policy in any way, but who might be sexier than expected. Titles and descriptions and the channel name are not blurred, and you can unblur the thumbnails if you want. I think it's interesting in a couple ways, because I think the first thing is that this implies people are doing searches and not actually realizing what they're searching for could give sexy results. You know, I don't know how that happens, but there's a lot of things that people make sexy that are unexpected. And the other thing I wonder is if this will actually change how much some of these videos are viewed if people can't see the thumbnails. So it's an interesting experiment. Like all the YouTube experiments, only a few people are seeing this, and there's no guarantee this will roll out to everyone. Some of it is just testing to see what will happen. If it rolls out more widely, YouTube will make an announcement. So I want to pause here for just a moment and say hello to the folks in chat. Welcome, Bridget and Craig and anyone else who's here. I'd love to hear what you think about this week's updates. I hope you're having a great weekend. I think that this is going to be an interesting month for updates because it's Google I/O. At the end of the month, there'll probably be a lot of Google-related things, but it looks like a lot of other platforms are rolling out changes as well. Interesting times. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is Edits. Edits is the new video editing app from Instagram. It's available on iOS and Android. It launched last week, and they are rolling out updates every week, supposedly this week. There's a couple of changes. There's more fonts. There are more voice effects, so if you want to change the way your voice sounds. And then they have a new option where if you use a filter or special effects on a video clip, you have the option of applying that to all the video clips in the video. So you don't have to do that one by one on each clip. Seems interesting. And if you edit your videos on a mobile device, it might be worth a try. It's free. There's no watermark. So there's no penalty for using it. And you might want to check it out. So I want to shift over to Vimeo. Now, Vimeo is a video platform. I think of it as being mostly professional. A lot of businesses use it. It's less like YouTube and more like this is where I store my fancy, my business's video or video shorts that were in a film festival or something like that. So one thing that they updated this week is their AI-powered automated video translations. So they now let you translate your video into 36 languages. This is not dubbing like what YouTube recently rolled out. This is for captioning. And one of the updates that I really like is that you can enter custom terms and phrases. So if you have specialized terminology or brand names or other terms or personal names, you can enter those so that they are translated correctly or not translated at all, as the case may be. And that's one of the real limitations on YouTube's side. Everything's automated. You can't give it any hints. So sometimes it gets things totally wrong. Vimeo also updated their user interface for managing this, and they have pay-as-you-go pricing. So this is AI-powered, and like a lot of things, the AI-powered tools are expensive. So you can see on the screenshot, there's credits there, and you can buy more credits if you need it. Craig says, Edits is a very original name, yes. I wonder at these companies, how do you think of something like that? It's like Google naming chat, where it's very descriptive, but not unique at all. And it makes it really almost impossible to do a search for some of these things because it's like edits. Edits on Instagram, you don't find these things. So, I want to say hello to Sifa. Welcome to the chat. Good to have you here. So I'm going to switch over now to an update for AdSense. If you monetize with AdSense, you probably know that you can block categories of ads from appearing on your content. And AdSense announced they're going to make a change. They're going to remove the video games, casual and online category from the sensitive categories for blocking. Now, sensitive categories are mostly things like dating and politics and get rich quick and alcohol, things like that, that are sensitive, that a lot of people may not want those ads. So it was a little weird to have a video game category there. And AdSense points out that there are two other general categories that probably fit the same bill if you don't want video game related ads on your content. That is the video games, consoles, and accessories category, and online games and puzzles category. Those are both general categories for ad blocking. You can do this in your AdSense account under brand safety if you're using AdSense for content. If you're using AdSense for YouTube, you can find the ad blocking categories in the settings in YouTube Studio on desktop. And of course, you have to keep in mind any categories of ads you block can at least theoretically decrease the amount of revenue you get. So something to consider. And I recommend checking your blocking settings if you're using AdSense, just to make sure you're not blocking anything that you don't want to block, or you want to block other ads. There's several categories of ads that I block, like I don't want diet pill ads, that sort of thing. So I block those. And just to be completely clear, this is a setting for the people with the content who are monetizing their content. If you are a reader or viewer and you want to manage what ads you are seeing, you can go to My Ad Center in your Google account settings. And that gives you some options to say thumbs down, thumbs up to various ad topics. So a quick update for folks who are web publishers. If you use Ghost, that is a newsletter and blogging platform, they are developing ActivityPub integration. Now, ActivityPub is how platforms talk to each other. So that's what Mastodon uses, for example. And the idea is that you have a Ghost profile, you publish your blogs there, and people can follow that ghost profile from their Mastodon account. You can follow people on Mastodon or these other platforms that use ActivityPub. And you can have one home on the internet and interact cross platforms. That's sort of the dream of federation. They announced several updates this week, but I think the most interesting one is a couple of switches they added to the settings. You can quickly enable sharing to Threads. Threads has partial ActivityPub integration, but it's not fully there yet, so you need to do some special tweaking. And you can turn on Bluesky integration. Bluesky uses a different protocol. It's not ActivityPub, so you need to use a bridging service for the posts to go across, but this lets you set up really easily. I think this is a really neat project. I'm not using Ghost. I don't think it's free to use, but I think this is maybe the future, or maybe a future I want to see. If you're using WordPress, there is a plugin you can use for Federation, ActivityPub Federation as well. So you might want to check that out. And now I'm going to talk about some legal changes, and these mostly affect creators and fans and subscribers in the US. So if you're outside the US, this may not be as interesting, but if you're outside the US and you sell things to people in the US, this is probably relevant to you. The first thing I wanted to talk about is a change at Patreon. Back in 2024, they told the creators who use Patreon, look, we've got to comply with Apple's fees in the Apple App Store. You've either got to charge people more money if they sponsor you from inside the iOS app, or you have to take a hit. You get less revenue, which kind of sucks for everyone, right? It sucks for the people who want to pay. It sucks for the creators. But this week, a judge in the ongoing case between Epic Games and Apple made a ruling that makes that a little bit better. So I'm just quoting from the Verge article here. It says, in many cases, Apple takes a 30% cut of purchases made in its apps. And in 2021, the judge made a ruling that forced Apple to allow developers to point to alternative payment options. But Apple then instituted a policy that demanded developers pay Apple 27% commission on those purchases. So Apple's like, oh, sure, you can have an alternative payment method. We won't take that 30% anymore, but you have to pay us 27% instead. The judge didn't like that. Note that this takes a long time to wend its way through the courts. This ruling was in 2021, 4 years ago, but the ruling they made is that Apple can't do that anymore. They can't take a commission if there's an alternative payment option used. So Patreon announced that they are submitting an updated version of their iOS app that takes this into account. And if people decide to use a different payment method, that should mean that the fees aren't taken out. Patreon also said that they are putting on hold their move to subscription billing. To be able to take payments in the App Store, people had to follow a specific subscription model, even though Patreon let people choose other models for other things, like, for example, paying per video people share, something like that. And now all those changes are on hold. So this was an interesting development. Spotify also updated their iOS app, and it's approved. It's in the App Store. The new app has pricing details and links to purchase subscriptions using a different payment method than the App Store itself. What Spotify says is we can now give consumers lower prices, more control, and easier access to the Spotify experience. So this litigation is ongoing. And of course, Apple wants to get as much money as possible. Things could change again, but I think it's going to be interesting to see if other platforms follow Spotify and follow Patreon and make changes to their iOS app, integrating different payment options. YouTube, for example, could do this. If people pay for memberships or subscriptions through the iOS app, they're actually either paying more for the subscription, or if it's memberships, the creator gets less money if you pay for the membership through the iOS app, which is pretty sucky, actually. So maybe that will change. I think this is good for viewers and listeners and creators. Less middleman. Of course, again, like I said, Apple's probably going to fight this. It could change again. So the other big payments-related news in the US is that there are more tariffs. There are tariffs taxing imports from lots of countries, but especially China. I think that's especially high. I think it's like 145% tariff, which is like, if it's $100 option, the tariff on that would be $145. And of course, the importers pay that. This is really painful for folks who are purchasing things, of course. There's been a bunch of companies that say, well, we're just going to stop selling things in the US for right now while this is unclear. Others are raising their prices really high, which is bad if you do product reviews or, if you need new products. It's affecting all kinds of things. But it's especially hard on small businesses and people who have manufactured items. So there's a lot of creators that have sort of a product line that they sell. People may have paid for those products before they were manufactured, and now it's actually a lot more expensive. So people are losing money or just making so little profit, it's not worth it. So in that vein, Kickstarter is launching a tariff manager. This allows creators to basically ask for people to pay the tariff when the Kickstarter item is being fulfilled. And it's smart. It knows the location people are in and what tariff they would have to pay. And there is apparently an option for people to say, no, I can't pay this, or I won't pay this, and contact the person running the Kickstarter directly. But it's kind of a sign of the times that people have to think about this. Yeah, interesting times. Anyway, this will be available in a few weeks. They have a new Pledge Manager app that's coming out. And if you're in the US and purchasing things through Kickstarter or anywhere, you're probably going to start seeing these things saying, oh, there's another fee for tariffs, which sucks. So I'll also mention that other platforms are touting their tariff-proof pricing, tariff-proof printing and fulfillment. This is Spring. It used to be called Teespring. They do print on demand, t-shirts and other items. They said, look, we've got fulfillment all around the world. We've got fulfillment from inside the US. People don't have to pay tariffs on those, and any tariffs on the things that are being printed on, that's already built in to the cost. So yeah, you're going to be seeing more and more of this stuff. I'll say Shopify, which is a platform for selling merchandise of various kinds. They also are implementing some tools for calculating tariffs and so forth. Craig says, I'm worried about having to pay more for electronics because of tariffs. That's probably almost certainly going to happen. How much is unclear. Some companies are not selling things in the US for right now. Well, things are a little unsure. And the US just doesn't have the manufacturing to create a lot of these things. Yeah, I don't know. And you also mentioned that Amazon may list the tariffs you must pay. Yeah, there was talk about that. Apparently, Jeff Bezos talked to the White House and totally nixed that. I don't fully understand what's going on. If the idea is the tariffs are supposed to encourage purchasing US goods and the development of US manufacturing, you'd think you would want to publicize how much the tariffs are. But yeah, no idea. So finally, I wanted to talk about a couple AI-related things. On Pinterest, they are now labeling AI-generated or manipulated images. And they're using the metadata of the images. So if you do this, Google, Adobe, most of the big platforms, they automatically add metadata that, oh, this was generated by AI, but Pinterest can't just trust people for that. And so they're using their own algorithms to detect this as well. You can appeal if they get it wrong. And I think really interestingly, they're also testing an option to see fewer AI-generated images in certain categories like beauty and home decor, where there's apparently a lot of AI-generated images there. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. And then now you can edit your own photos in Gemini. You can change the background or change and remove objects. This has an invisible Synth ID watermark on it. And also, just important, Google is not using the images that you upload for AI training unless you submit them specifically with feedback. They also do some sort of review for moderation policies, and those may be viewed by a person, but they're not using your photos for training. Okay, really quickly, I wanted to talk about what was happening 10 years ago this week. So 10 years ago this week, YouTube killed subscription collections. This was not a huge change in the whole greater scheme of things, but honestly, I'm still a little salty about it because I used it a lot. Collections were a way of grouping together your subscriptions. You put all the channels you're subscribed to in a special category in essentially a folder. So it could be tech. And then you could click that on the left menu and see a feed of just content from channels in that particular collection. So if you're in the mood for comedy, you could have a comedy channel collection and put that together. Why the change? I don't know. So the original announcement of this change, it was either in the old YouTube forums or on Google+. It's lost to time, as far as I can tell. My guess is that the reason it was being shut down is not enough people were using it, which is almost always the reason. And it is not at all lost on me that YouTube shut down subscription collections within a couple weeks of Google announcing Google Plus collections. Maybe they were worried about the confusion, or maybe it's just a coincidence. I don't know. So if you saw the banner on the subscription tab on your YouTube channel, it said, we're going to discontinue collections and we'll focus on other efforts to make your subscriptions more enjoyable. I'm not sure what that referred to. I don't think anything ever happened there. Subscriptions are the same now as they were 10 years ago, best I can tell. People weren't happy about this change, of course. Like a lot of things, there may not have been a lot of general use, but the people who used the feature used it a lot, and people were really unhappy. Over on Reddit, I was looking at some old discussions, and one person even said, well, what they're going to do is create a brand new YouTube channel for each of their collections, and then just have those subscriptions, and then they use the channel switching option to switch between the different channels to watch different types of videos. This does not seem like a sustainable way for it to work. I suspect they didn't keep that up for long. And I'll mention that this is a real problem. Over time, you accumulate a lot of subscriptions and you go to a subscription feed. There's more videos than you can watch there. Some of them you may have subscribed to 10 years ago and you're not really interested anymore, but it's too much effort to go through and actually manage all the channels you're subscribing to. So the solution seems to be have a better algorithm. People say they hate the algorithm, but it really, when it works well, it shows people things they're interested in watching. If you go to the YouTube homepage, you'll see some videos from your subscriptions, some new videos that YouTube thinks you're interested in. You can get personalized topics up at the top on the YouTube homepage. Select a topic, you'll see more videos like that. And of course, it's not just YouTube. That is sort of the secret sauce for TikTok, their algorithm. I'm not sure many people at all use the following feed or friends feed. They just go and watch what the algorithm shows them. So just a quick tip, if you miss things like subscription collections, you can use a feed reader that lets you organize your feeds into folders or groups and then add the YouTube channels to the feeds. Every YouTube channel has an RSS feed of new videos. So I use Feedly to do that, and it's nice because you don't even need to subscribe to the channel. So if there's a bunch of videos that you want to monitor, a bunch of channels that you want to keep tabs on, but you don't necessarily want to subscribe to them, you can use a feed reader to do that. So that is all for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you found this week's updates interesting. If you have any questions or comments, you can always leave a comment. I will see you all next Sunday.